And welcome back. It's an area of large controversy here in the city of Wichita, and that's whether or not to add fluoride to our water supply. We've had both sides actually on the show in the past few weeks, and interesting to hear the thoughts from both sides. Something that I thought was we would talk about this morning that kind of got my attention was we finally got the ballot wording. A little different, Bob, than the situation with the Ambassador Hotel, which you were heavily involved in. Mm-hmm. That ballot was challenging to read, to say the least. I think that's probably putting it mildly. Well,
the language on the petitions and then on the ballot that people looked at when they voted didn't really have anything to do with what a yes vote meant and what a no vote meant. That language, however, was prescribed by, I can't remember if it was the Kansas Constitution or a statute, but the wording had to be exactly what it was. This fluoridation ballot measure, the language was written by the pro-fluoride team, and it's written, I think, in a plain, at least a relatively plain style that most people can understand. There's going to be huge campaigns on both sides as well. I think people will know what yes or no means. But there has been a movement in Kansas to, for these ballot issues, that if there's a confusing language like there was with the Ambassador Hotel, that the Attorney General or somebody could write an explainer clause that would go on the ballot too, and that would help people decide what yes and no means.
Well, probably not a bad idea. Judge, a lot of money is going to be spent on this campaign, I would imagine, both sides.
Well, and I think they both have arguments that the people are going to need to hear. There's no doubt they're going to spend some money. I think you're going to see a lot of grassroots campaigning. You know, like in the primary, we saw a lot of grassroots campaigning, particularly by Tea Party groups. There are four main groups, 912 and Americans for, what are they? Kansas for Freedom or whatever. And I'm sure you're going to see them do that. I think the Eagle, I read an article by Annie Kalovich that I thought did a good job of looking at some of the technical issues regarding the fluoride. And I think there's a lot of information out there that needs to be told to the public, and I'm afraid they're probably going to end up having a little misinformation too. It's a tough call. You know, we've had, what, 2 ballots on this question in the past. Both times it went down rather handily. I thought there was another one more recently than 1978, but
oh, really?
I couldn't remember for sure.
Well, I remember it was talked about just a few years ago, and I wonder if it just didn't ever make it past the council. I don't know.
That may be it.
Yeah. You know, I was in the council chambers a week or two ago when quite a few people spoke, and you know, there's a lot of passion on both sides. What troubled me about it is a young woman dentist who I think is very much involved with the pro-fluoridation side said the scientific debate is over. And I found that very troubling because I don't think the scientific debate is ever over. Each day we learn new things, and I would imagine that a young dentist like her, by the time she ends the end of her career, a lot of the stuff she's doing right now is probably going to be overruled as ineffective or something like that. So to say the scientific debate is over, I think that's a real disservice.
When you looked at the article on what the Center for Disease Control said about fluoridation, I thought that had a lot of information in it that was important for people to know. For example, it can affect infants, and there can be a side effect, a negative side effect if there's too much fluoride. I don't know how much fluoride is naturally in our water, which can occur also.
We're about halfway there. I think it's, you gotta, and I'm sure I'm messing these numbers up, but I think we're about halfway where we need to be.
That's
where the fluoride folks, they boosted about another, you know.
And then there are other natural inputs for fluoride in your diet also, such as tea or other things like that. So I think it'll be an interesting question.
There are some towns.
Our water's fluoridated in Hayesville, I think.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
I did not realize that. I know there are towns in Kansas, rather, that do have naturally occurring levels of fluoride that actually hit the limit, whatever that is.
I think in some places they actually have to treat water to remove it. But you know what's interesting is the city of Wichita sells water to a lot of surrounding towns, Derby, Andover, places like that. And you're starting to see, hey, why don't I in Derby, I'm going to have to drink this fluoridated water, why don't I get to have a vote in this? And so that's an interesting issue too. Speaking of voting, I was, you know, almost shocked to hear our Vice Mayor Janet Miller when she was talking about this at the bench after the debate, she said, well, did we vote on putting iodine in salt? No, we didn't vote on that. Why should we vote on fluoride? As was her basic argument. And I thought, well, you know, iodized salt, that's a voluntary act. You can buy lots of salt. I looked at the kosher salt that I keep in my house, and no iodine in it. And the fancy sea salts that people are using, they've got a lot of minerals in them, maybe iodine too, but they certainly don't have iodine that's added. So, yeah, that was something.
You can buy bottled water though too.
Yeah, bottled water, and you know, sometimes in Wichita my wife doesn't like the smell and taste of it, so you have to drink bottled water.
Well, and one of the things CDC suggested was if a baby is just on infant formula, that they use bottled water and not fluoridated water to make the formula, because that's all the kid's going to have for the first year.
That's true.